something else because it's important.
Well, I think so too. I used to advise the Black Student Union, and now another person in my department advises the Black Student Union. And what's interesting is that the Black Student Union was comprised primarily of female leadership. None of the guys were engaged in BSU on a leadership level. And then when we created SOB, what we found is that this year, the BSU is still primarily leadership dominated by women, but SOB has connected with the Black Student Union and they're doing joint programming.
That's good, but I mean, that's not unusual with Black women who led these organizations. That's been sort of historically the case in white universities. Not the African males, but the women, the more of them, and they've been more successful. And they've also taken some of the, no offense, but they've been given some privileges that the Black males have not. In other words, you know, they've been fostered in a way that Black males have not. Given all the data used, I mean, those stereotypes against the males, Black males, are greater than those against Black females.
And some of it is the guys themselves. You know,
yeah.
You have to look at some of the attitudes that they bring to the table. In some respects, joining an organization is being soft. You know, I'm hard. I have to be, you know, this way all the time. But sometimes in working with them, having them to understand that you're not giving up who you are to advance or to get new experiences, that can be a struggle. And that's just a psychological thing.
Well, absolutely.
You know, but it's cultural as well.
These things are not easy, these things that we're talking about.
You make a good point that the ones that were successful understood that hardness and strength aren't necessarily the same thing. You know, you can be strong and resilient, and it's not always about the projecting this hardness exterior. You know, that's just a facade. And for the guys who understand that, and like I said, in linguistics, they're able to code switch and they're able to, you know, change based on the setting that they're in. You know, it does them well. You said earlier that some men were able to embrace this idea of being Black men as an asset, as a strength. So, you know, because the lens that we're being viewed by in the larger society, there's this lens of this pathology. And that's a big part of the problem. We're saying that Black men are a pathology, but the pathology is in the lens in which we look at Black men. And that's what a lot of these guys are articulating, and that's an indictment implication on the larger society, you know. I mean, and how do we get to, we talk about American globalization and how we are falling so far behind, whether we talk about the urban community or the suburban community. When it comes to math and sciences, we're all lagging behind. And so if we continue to hold back and let other groups, just like minorities, just go to the wayside and not invest in them, that makes this country overall in a much weaker place to be competitive in a global society. So when you invest in African Americans, you are investing in America. You know, this is an American asset. And, you know, how do we get to that point? You know, like I said, we live in Michigan, almost every other state in the union with a 2% or more African American population. So again, I don't think we fully embrace that, and that's part of the challenges that we face.
Well, I think part of it is creating more graduates, creating more college graduates, irrespective of race, gender, color, ethnicity, culture. And that's really where I think the nation wants to go. But yet still you have pockets where there are some folks who are essentially living in a subculture. There's an urban subculture that does not reflect the values of the university. And that's part of the issue that we have in terms of orientation and socializing the students that do come from these backgrounds into the values and the culture of the research university, which are very incompatible. You know, they're foreign to many of the students that we serve. And then we wonder why they don't, you know, advance into the higher levels of enrollment.
That was what my question was going to be in regards to that, and the reason that I had mentioned as far as talking to some of the students who had not graduated in comparison to those who were already registered, just to find out what are they identifying as those issues are they the same in comparison as to the ones who are actually graduating and being successful, just to find out if those are compatible and if there are some other supports that we can give to help the retention. Now, part of what I'm the co-president of Greater Detroit Association of Black Social Work Students, chapter through the School of Social Work, and we have been trying to collaborate with our parent chapter and coming up with ways of some of the issues that might be of concern. Also, in sitting on the Student Senate here at Wayne State as a social work representative alternate for the School of Social Work, a lot of these concerns and issues, we have raised some issues about retention, but not specifically to our particular, say, the African American community. And so I think that, one, getting the issue out as far as there is an actual disparity, there is an actual problem that's there. I don't know if it's widespread known that, you know what I'm saying, as to the severity and the numbers. So one is getting the information out as to that there is a need and that there is there's a need that needs to be addressed. You know, the importance of that. I think that's very important, number one. And then coming up with a strategy, because, you know, when it was mentioned and how I found out about this and individually was through one of my research instructors who said, you know, this is going on. I thought, wow, this is a very interesting topic. This is something that's come up in some of our meetings through GDA BSW. So, you know, let me find out what I can do to be a part. So, and a number of students who couldn't be here. There are not that many African American males that are in, say, for instance, the social work program. And as far as their participation was due to having to work and still maintain the caseload and the school load and things of that nature. And so there were other structures as to why they're not being involved. And so, you know, it was interesting for us to say, okay, what can we look at to try to help you get more involved in campus activities or different things in managing school and then outside obligations. So I think that, you know, identifying, you know, which is really good what you're doing, and identifying what the perspectives of the students who are currently, the male students that are currently enrolled is, what their issues are. But, you know, having a well-rounded view of, you know, what we can do and some of the things, some of the other ideas of what may not be working. So.
Well, I think our institutional setting is a concern. We're primarily a commuter institution. And so the average age of our students primarily is older. And many of our students have jobs, they work, they have families, things of that nature. Most of the students that I talked with were all age ranges. You know, so there were some that were, you know, 21, 22, some were 28, some were 32. You know, and so for them, the internal factors didn't change. You know, they're still husbands and fathers and, you know, employees, but what they experienced was kind of like, you know, the themes that drew out of their interviews, or that came out of their interviews, were pretty much consistent. So I think, you know, the environmental things, like you were saying, the other outside factors are critically important as well. But I think that there are some climate issues that we have not addressed as an institution. And there are 8,000 African American students here. It's not like there's like, you know, 20 or 30 or even 100. There are 8,000, which is larger than some HBCUs. And
You're
for
talking
some
about
reason,
the whole university. You're talking
the
about
whole
medical
university.
School.
There are
You're talking about medical
6,000.
school and law school.
There are 6,000 or so undergraduates, African American undergraduates.
In the undergraduate schools, yeah. Oh, that's in the undergraduate school?
So when you look at the sheer numbers, undergrad. You know, and to speak to your point, there have been some national publications that have looked at the data that we submit to the federal government, and they have printed pretty scathing critiques of our university in the national press.
There was a Free Press article not so long ago, and that was explained and addressed by Howard Shapiro.
And the Chronicle of Higher Education.
In the Chronicle of Higher Education. Yeah. So the university has responded to, you know, those criticisms. You know.
And all fairness, we are doing some things better than we were. Thanks to Howard and some of this group.
Yes, we are.
I thought I saw hands at the back. Is there a question from that part of the room?
Not really, but I just have one question, just another question. The graduation rate of the white